So I have the distinct pleasure of being able to moderate this conversation today with several airport authorities within the state of Texas. So first off, my name is Luis Delgado. I'm president with the Construction Management Division at STV. And again, I have the distinct pleasure of having this panel today. So I will let each and every one of you go ahead and do a quick introduction if you don't mind. So we'll get started.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hate standing in between you and lunch, but just real quick, my name's Kevin Smith. I've been the airport director in Corpus Christi since April of 2020. Spent 19 years at DFW Airport, so I went from 10,000 passengers an hour to about 50 people a day at the height of COVID. So it was a little bit of a shock to the system, but I've really enjoyed it. We're back up above COVID levels now, so enjoying living on the beach. So anyway, we'll get back to it.
So I'm Joel Martinez. I'm the director of aviation for Waco Regional Airport. I've been there for about a little over 14 years. Prior to that, I was at Del Rio, converted them from a general aviation to a commercial airport. And I've also been teaching at Baylor University now for 10 years in their aviation sciences department.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Robinson Owens. I'm Assistant Director for Project Delivery in the Infrastructure Group for Houston Airport Systems. Mario Diaz is our Chief Executive Officer. We manage projects across 3 different airport campuses, which includes the Bush Airport, Hobby Airport, as well as Ellington Field, where we have our spaceport and various efforts going on in those regards. We also have a 5-star rating for Hobby Airport, the only in the state of Texas, as well as throughout North America. And we're maintaining our 4-star rating at Skytrax for IIH as well.
Good afternoon. Ron?
Not working? No, I don't think it's.
Good afternoon. My name is Summer Shindler. I am Austin Airport's Chief Development Officer. I've been with AUS since August of 2023, but I am a career planning, design, construction, aviation girl. And so I have worked all over the country for United Airlines, Southwest Airlines, Denver International Airport, and with AECOM, leading their aviation teams in the Pacific Northwest. I am happy to be back home in Texas and near my family, and really excited to build some fantastic projects at the airport.
Hello, I'm Emily Lambert. I am representing TxDOT Aviation. I work for the planning and programming section of our division, and I'm a business ops project manager. So I'm responsible for currently the Houston area and Northeast Texas planning projects out for the airports in that area. We do a lot of general aviation, but prior to moving to Texas last year in April, I was in airside operations at Charlotte Douglas. So I'm from kind of all over, but most recently from North Carolina, and very excited to be in Texas and to plan out some projects and get things done.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for being here. So the first question that I'm going to be asking is, what are some of the key elements, ideas, or innovation solutions that you're putting in place within your projects, within your programs, that you would like to share with the audience? So what are some of the things that are making you successful, that you're saying, hey, we've never thought about it before, this is working? What can you share with us? And I'll start on this end, and I'll go in that direction. So Kevin.
Okay, super. Yeah, well, we've been very fortunate. In the last 3 years, we've received over 14 grants totaling $35 million, one of them from TxDOT, so thank you very much. And so we are just on the brink of a terminal rehabilitation project. And I think what we've developed real quick is learning that there's a lot of things on long lead times. So we're real careful about giving notice to proceeds on projects until we know we have procured the specialized item. One thing that comes to mind in particular, we have a generator that we need a new switchgear for, and the lead time on that is 88 weeks. So we're just, looking at every component of our project to figure out what we need to procure early and how do we change those contracts in order to meet the supply chain issues that we have. I think the other thing that's important is just, starting off with good, clear communication and, expectations. We've been very fortunate to work with some really good contractors. We're getting ready to launch our master plan. And so we're, just in the middle of about 20 different projects, and it's a little overwhelming at times, but we've got a great team in Corpus, and we use Garver to help us with manage some of those projects. So getting good partners, and then just getting those expectations on the table before the project starts has helped us.
Joel?
Yeah, very similar. Obviously, not to the scale of some of my peer airports here, but some of the things that we do, again, with limited resources, we have. We really do take into account some of the materials deliverables that we have coming up for certain projects, and we really charge our architects or engineers with materials that are readily available or that have kind of a minimal lead time. And very similar, we identify those long lead times and then we phase those in. And so we're in the middle of a terminal renovation project right now. And that's one of the things that we've had to do with this project, is be very flexible with our phasing of that project, is that, we're trying to allow for, materials to arrive, to be installed, immediately, that kind of stuff, and then allow them to move. And we're kind of, pardon our dust, really bad right now. As a matter of fact, this week, it's really rough because we're waiting on some materials, but we're giving the contractor some flexibility, but communication, not only with our stakeholders and our engineers, but also, with our city council. We, being from a smaller community, airports are a pretty political place to live, as you well know. So again, setting that expectation with our elected officials also helps that process.
Nicole?
So I think Kevin and Joel stole my notes. No, just kidding. My answers are pretty similar. I mean, yes, we are a system. We have multiple airports in which we're managing work. Again, so we have an executive program. You guys will hear from Travis Standard for later today with Turner Townsend, who's leading the International Terminal Project. So there's a lot of collaboration there, right? Lessons learned from some of their efforts that apply to our airport system. Collaboration is key. I think that some of the successes we've seen more recently is making sure that we're including our stakeholders, both internal and external, up front. The FAA we meet with weekly to make sure that we understand programs and grants that we need to identify ahead of time, take that into consideration against our CIP, and make sure that we have a very carefully well thought out CIP or improved from previous years. And so we also have the SkyTrax program, which we've been successful at so far. And a lot of that is also because of seamless collaboration with our internal stakeholders, identifying goals up front, making sure that we can achieve those goals up front by considering the long lead items. Our stuff is not so much as making sure there's readily available products, because in order for us to achieve the level of quality and success we have some very brand name items that have to come from, way overseas. It takes time. And so as Kevin mentioned earlier about making sure that you don't release your NTPs in advance or too far in advance, so that you don't lose sight of the goals and the delivery dates. Those are some of the key things. And then just in terms of innovation, so modularity is important to us. We're starting to implement modular restrooms for our restrooms upcoming, and we'll have kind of a warehouse with different size sections so that those can apply to different parts of our terminals, both at Hobby as well as IAH.
Summer?
Yeah, I think when it comes to innovation, we have a very large expansion program that we've been planning, and we've kicked off the programming side of it. And I'll shamelessly plug Industry Day and my contracts throughout this time. Where we are really looking for partners, I think, focused to help us in 3 areas of innovation. One, sustainability and wellness, from design to construction and operation of our buildings and our infrastructure. We really want to see new ideas. We want to really push ourselves on that. Another one is in the delivery, and that's really to all my contractor friends out there. I am really behind in the sense that I guess some other airports will say that I'm blessed that we had substantial return in growth and then exceeded all of the expectation of growth here in the Central Texas region. And so I need gates. I need everything. I needed them several years ago. bringing innovation of how we deliver and how we need to do that in a phased way. Really looking for our partners to bring that to the table. And I think in the third is an industry capacity building, especially in the Central Texas region. And that is not only in my small businesses here locally, but also in my primes. And then being able to work with our industry partners to be an owner of choice, and understanding what that looks like to build that design and construction industry here in Austin to match Dallas and Houston.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, just following up with what all of them, it's like clear to me that we all work as a team for the entire airport system in Texas to collaborate. And by getting things done, like for us, it's the state. So I think that our innovation comes with like planning as early as possible and being transparent with all of our sponsors and the other stakeholders. Like we work closely with the FAA and our consultants to make sure everyone's on the same page earlier rather than later. And coming out of the pandemic, we've been trying to come up with ways to, make our projects go further and come up with ways to have cost savings. And one of those is like a statewide pavement program we've been doing, where we loop together similar projects in regions of the state that need similar projects for pavement. And we've been seeing like 50% cost savings for design and like 33% for construction costs. And we're thinking of doing something similar for lighting. So just collaborating with that takes a lot of local contractors and work with the FAA and the consultants in order to make things like that happen. And that means that more airports that have less funding locally are able to get projects done that desperately need it.
So one common theme or something that I heard from several of you, you're talking about the pre-pandemic levels and after the pandemic, the growth that you've experienced that's maybe even beyond what you had pre-pandemic days and so on. So with those kind of things going on, and then with the explosion of the population that we have here in the state of Texas, how is that impacting your planning efforts, your master plan, as you're talking about, Kevin, in terms of saying, okay, this is what we envision we're going to need for the next 5 years? Summer, you're saying I needed those gates 3 years ago already, and you're already behind, right? So how are those things impacting the way that you're planning your upcoming capital programs? And I'll start with Emily, because I know that this was something that we talked about that's near and dear to you because of being on the planning side. But how is TxDOT addressing some of those issues?
So we're having to kind of, zoom out and take a step back and look at our projects that we had planned prior to the pandemic. Things have changed a lot, obviously, and we've had to reevaluate and see if this is like the airports that have projects that were in the works for the years following the pandemic before we knew about it, if they're still the most important and they should be at the top of their priority list. And instead, maybe we should look at a planning project so they can design and construct things that make more sense with like the increase in costs. And so that's essentially how we've been doing it, by kind of just like reevaluating and deciding what's best for them now, versus looking back at projects that were developed in 2015 to 2017.
Summer, you talked about it as you mentioned that you're already behind. So how are you going to try to make up for that deficit that you already feel you have?
Yes, I mean, right now we're since I've got there, we've been turned upside down. So in 2018, 2019, before I was with AUS, we finished our master plan. We were supposed to hit a certain level of traffic by 2040. We're now expected to hit it by 2028. And this year we're hitting 28 metrics now. So it changes everything. The other thing that also changed for Austin is that we were an O&D airport. We were 90-10. We are now a large hub. And so it was a big thing for us. But we're also having a lot more connecting passengers. This changes everything when you're programming. And so we got a little bit further along, and then we realized that a lot of our processing units, ticket counters, checkpoints, queues, gates, of course, are no longer working. So the program that said, hey, we needed a new arrivals departure hall and it would be delivered in 2028, I can no longer do that. I have to now change it to an optimization project at the airport because I can no longer operate. And if you've been in the Austin, you know that even last spring, there were times where you were outside in the queues. And so that became our focus. And then we had to we had to do a big pause to say, okay, if we're starting to invest money in this, then I need to really invest money and then really plan out when that arrivals departure hall is. It also meant that I need to say, okay, is it 10 gates? No, it's actually more than what our, environmental assessment was approved for in the next 5 years. So trying to plan all those things and then knowing that they're all needed now and that my contracts and my delivery teams it's not a sequential element anymore. I can't do gates and then start programming this. Everything has to be done now. So though I still have an expansion program that has been marketed for years, ADP, and it's still gates, what is in it is very different. And how we go about solving that will be very different than it was 12 months ago.
Nicole, I see you.
We might work at the same
Agreeing with
airport.
I know.
So, we have a similar situation where we've been planning another major program and we have to make adjustments for adjacencies, other expansion opportunities. So to take it back a step to when the pandemic happened, some things were shelved that were on our CIP. Now they're kind of revived. It's like you were supposed to do it yesterday. There's all these grant opportunities that are coming out, and we've had to adjust certain programming to accommodate those or take advantage of those opportunities. But the issue that I'm running into in terms of programming and delivery, we get ready to go out for advertisement and we submit our documents, through the processes, and the bids come back and they say, wait a minute, why are they so much higher than your budget? Well, there was that misstep of considering the escalation cost from a year or 2 years ago when the budget was first identified. And so making sure that we're aware of that from that lessons learned and implement that into our processes. So when PMs submit their paperwork and start the process of advertisement, that there's that checkpoint of, hey, is my budget current? Right? Is it current with today's market? So that's one of the major things that we've run into. And then also with the infrastructure bill grants, right? There's all these different new opportunities that it's like, Tetris on steroids, trying to fit things into the rules and making sure that you have a project that's going to have a hard bid in time for the award to actually go through. We've been very fortunate within this state to have a great share of the funds that have been made available. And we're trying to continue that effort. In more recent years, we really hadn't had that grant focus. We had someone dedicated to it, kind of lost that coverage for the time of the pandemic. And now we're back making sure that that's one of our priorities so that we can continue to move our projects through the grant funding.
Yeah. And Kevin, Joel, so in your cases being smaller airports in comparison to what you talk about Austin and Houston, that planning effort, thinking about what's coming down the pipeline, what are the things that you're doing that are also helping you kind of develop those strategic plans for you to be able to execute?
So I have the benefit that I'm on the back end of a master plan. Our master plan was conducted in 2019. I was the airport director, prior to that, 10 years prior to that, and still the airport director there. So it really is, a lot of that is kind of like succession, right? Like, we make sure there's follow through, and the pandemic really slowed things down. Waco was kind of one of those outfall airports. I think we were one of 2 in the country that received like an $18 million grant when all of our peers got like 2. And so, we had to identify, hey, wait a minute, we can knock out that project, that project, that project. Fortunately, our master plan had kind of already laid some of those out. And then we did jump out and grab, right now we're in our terminal building project, which wasn't identified because, we're kind of in that capacity, although, we have some age on our facility, we're still within capacity. And so the FAA wasn't going to fund that. So we actually had to kind of understand the rules a little bit to understand how we could apply that to something that, hey, here's an opportunity for us to spend, federal money, 100% of that is federal money and get this done. And we did that within 2 years. And I think, for projects of a terminal, talking about terminal development type stuff, that's fairly quick considering we're not adding capacity. We're merely remodeling. So really kind of thinking outside the box and looking to see what falls under their FAQs. That's kind of how they give us guidance, is through their FAQs or, frequently asked questions. And that's kind of how I've done it. I don't have the resources or some of the other capacity challenges that other airports have.
Yeah, I think, we get a lot of diversions from our Austin and Houston friends. So we do have capacity issues during certain times. Probably tonight we'll have some capacity issues. We don't, kind of like you, we don't have the support of the FAA to really expand our terminal. We were able to put in in this last BIL funding project, an outdoor patio of about 1,700 square feet. And the only way we were able to convince the FAA of that is anybody from the FAA in here? Is we put a service animal relief area on the outdoor patio. So we were able to meet another, compliance issue with the FAA. The one thing that troubles me at night is the electrification of the industry. That's one thing that I don't think any airport is prepared for. I know Houston's probably a little more ahead of the curve than most, just because I've heard some presentations. But these new 19-seat aircraft that United purchased 100 of, they take 1 megawatt of power to recharge. And in Corpus Christi, we use about 32 megawatts a year. So just to build the pipes to support that industry keeps me up at night. So that's kind of where we're working on right now, is a solar farm, and what do we do to make sure we're ready for those aircraft when United takes delivery of them.
So as you're talking about we talked about planning and so on, and you're talking about electrical vehicles. So the resiliency, the sustainability effort that you're putting in place in terms of your plans, can you expand a little bit more? And I'll open up to any of you to say, what are you working in terms of those kind of elements that have to do with environmental sensitive matters, resiliency, sustainability, and so on?
So I'll speak to that just briefly. So before I came here to Houston, I was a planner for the FAA, sorry. And I came into Houston as a senior PM for sustainability for HAS, and I only did that for about 1.5 years before I moved kind of more into this role. So I know that, the city of Houston, we have our climate action plan, and we're a department of the city. So our goals to help accomplish that align with the climate action plan. So we're looking at carbon accreditation. We're looking into solar, and you're right about the 1 megawatt. I mean, it's just more to come with that, right? Electrification of our vehicles. So we have some kind of internal support for our buses, and then even for some of our employees, but we're looking to expand that. We have solar at our red garages at Hobby. So there are things coming. We have a whole sustainability management plan and 5 different components that we track in terms of energy, water. We now have someone focused on resiliency, and so we're trying to get going with a resiliency master plan as of a couple of months ago. So we're in the infant stages of that, but just trying to get ahead of things that you anticipate with sustainability and resiliency, and this topic is right on time.
I'm very lucky to be at an airport that has invested resources over many years in their sustainability plan. And I'm looking at BJ right now, one of my sustainability managers here. And I would say that AUS has already been innovative in many ways, and we're in from solar to electrification to capture reuse of gray water. Those things are already in play, and I feel like the team's done a really good job to have us as a leader in aviation. But it doesn't mean that we sit still. I think there's a lot of conversations about. We just had a lot of them on Friday about resiliency and doing resiliency in a sustainable way. What does cogen look like for us? All of those things in consideration, and the team has kicked off an effort to revise our sustainability goals for this program and to see what really can we achieve and what can we really push ourselves. And of course, we have to be aligned as well with our climate equity plan that the city of Austin puts forth. I don't. For us, it's in play. It's to continue what we're doing and then push ourselves to be better, and to definitely be a leader of airports in North America would be the goal for us. I'm going to say that like I'm really like looking on the side of my eye at BJ right now. I don't want him sweating on that comment.
Okay, perfect. Do you have something else to add, Emily, or not?
I guess all I have to add is that I know that there's been discussion from some of our sponsors having interest in including electric charging stations for aircraft, and it's something that we want to start incorporating into our planning studies because it's relevant and it's happening now. And it's not something that the state looked at prior to that, but now it's something that people are wanting to put at their airports today. So, and then earlier this week, my team and I were at the FAA's partnership conference up in Dallas, or in Hearst, and there was a lot of talk about it. And the FAA said the same. They were like, this is happening current day. This is something we need to start implementing and talking about so we could put it in the plans. So when 20 years comes, everyone has it all set up.
Perfect. Perfect.
And one other thing
Go ahead, Summer.
that we are shooting for at AUS is definitely Envision credited on our infrastructure projects. Our taxiway, Crossville Taxiway, will be our first, but it won't be our last. I think that is a really great program, much more expansive than some of the other programs out there. So that is definitely going to be a requirement moving forward for us.
Perfect. And so I'm going to go back to you, Summer, with this question to start off with. And you mentioned that you were going to do a shameless plug about your industry day.
Yes.
So I would like for all of you to kind of, if you have anything to offer in terms of that regard, when you come, you're talking about outreach in general. We talked about inflation. We talked about supply chain. We talked about all those kind of issues that we're facing right now. So what are the things that you're doing in terms of industry day, outreach? And also, so that will be kind of like the first part of the question. And then the second part is the outreach that's being done to try to bring DVEs, SBEs, and WBEs to some of your projects. What are the things that are happening? So, Summer, I'll start with you based on following up that comment, and then I'll let everybody else interject as necessary.
Oh, thank you, and I'll try not to take up everybody's time. Yes, I'm having an industry day on April 19th, and you can go to Fly Austin, doing business with, employee registration is required. And then I'll have another in October. As far as outreach and what we're doing, once I moved back to Texas, it became really apparent to me that I definitely have a capacity issue here in Central Texas, the availability, and even at a prime level, not just at local DBEs, but even really looking at pulling in nationwide DBEs. So this was something that when you're doing a large program, $4 billion, it worries me that my local DBEs here who are on all of my contracts start to have a conflict of conflict of interest, and then also the ability to perform that work. So we hadn't really built that capacity yet, specifically, not just in the trades, but in our engineering side as well, that it's not there. I'm also seeing here in the Central Texas region where there are large nationwide offices in Houston and Dallas, that some of those offices are not here with the resources here to perform work. We're also competing with a lot of private developments that can pull equipment, crews, roofing crews, trades, concrete, RTUs away from me, and I can't get them, and that's like real time. And so these are some of the issues. So we've kicked off our strategy for this, and there's a lot of things that we need. Yes, industry day, so I can tell you anything and everything about our program, and having multiple of those. We will have most of our contracts go out for this big expansion program between December of this year to March of next, and that's probably going to be about $3.5 billion worth of contracts all at once, right? So I need that capacity out there. I need partnerships. So we need to relook at our quals, really push mentor protege programs, have it formalized, score on for the small businesses that they have meaningful leadership roles with their partners, and that will be part of our scoring. It is not a pass-through. So these things that we can do to initiate change, right? Having multiple roundtables so I can get this feedback from primes and small businesses before I set these contracts up. Also having speed dating opportunities. I have to be the one that provides the conduit for this networking. That's on me. The other big thing that we want to do is have a workforce development program, and not just on the trades, but with our designers, working with universities all around Texas, and keeping our graduates here in Central Texas. I graduated from UT, and I hightailed it to Dallas because Dallas is where structural engineers were, and so that there's no reason why I shouldn't stay here now, right? And so this strategy will be rolled out. I think we can do a lot better about communicating, putting up our bid opportunities, packaging opportunities, all of those things, and the airport needs to take responsibility for those.
Nicole, you had yours 2 days ago, I think.
Yes, so I'm well equipped to answer that question. So for HAS infrastructure, obviously, tends to lead the discussions or the presentations for Industry Day with our vendor community. But we also have the Office of Business Opportunity, which leads the minority participation components and helps with the outreach. We have a lot of new faces within our leadership for infrastructure. And so the people that have previously managed Industry Day or planned for it weren't necessarily in place. There was a lot of figuring out who does what, when, and how. We fed people, so I think that really allowed us to have
a lot of compliments on the fajitas.
Yeah, breakfast and lunch. I mean, an entire day of meals. But no, more importantly, we collaborated with our executive team. And so although our international program is moving towards completion, they still gave some highlights. And it was important to do that so that our vendor community that attended could understand the level of quality and the type of output that we're looking to maintain with new major programs. But we also allowed almost every single department of infrastructure to represent and help the vendor community understand who does what, because there's a lot of questions. You know, our newer chief development officer, he's inundated with requests for meetings all the time, and he's only one person. And so it's good to help everyone understand who can really help them work through potential opportunities in the future. We had our building standards group just give a brief presentation on permitting and code compliance. Even our controls team spoke briefly, and a lot of our staff said, hey, why are we talking about more than upcoming procurement opportunities? But in order for, it's good to know about what's coming, but you also need to know how to be successful at it. And so we wanted to make sure that all the moving pieces and sections of infrastructure, as well as the OBA Office for Minority Participation, allowed the vendors to understand what they were up against to be successful, right? To really qualify and run this thing to completion. So beyond that, in terms of outreach, the OBA office would probably have to elaborate more on that. But I do know Kelly Irving, who runs it for HAS, she works very closely with the city of Houston in terms of being certified. You know, there's a whole program where you would submit your application separate for MBE, WBE, as well as DBE. And DBE is becoming more at the forefront because the federal procurement guidelines require DBE more so than anything else. And so we when we highlighted upcoming procurement opportunities, there was about 17 projects that I spoke to, up to about $200 million. And we forecast ahead of time, hey, this project's coming probably in this quarter. It will likely be DBE because it's eligible for this grant opportunity. So we really tried to lay it out in a seamless and programmatic manner so that when the vendors that are successful at their bids come on board, they're already on the same page about, you know, what we expect.
Okay. And Joel, you and I talked about it as well, being in a much smaller environment. The things that you have to do for outreach are different strategies that they've discussed. So do you mind kind of talking about some of those?
Yeah. So obviously, you know, we don't have the draw of some of the major, you know, national or even regional contractors for Central Texas, for Waco. And so what I've done for the DBE and participation in that regard is I've gone to the minority chambers of commerce, and I've actually worked with our DBE consultant, and he's agreed to have workshops like on a Saturday to take these subs and these generals that, you know, they are already minority-owned businesses, you know, they just need to be certified. And then, you know, we kind of make sure that on those particular websites, on those job boards or bid opportunities, that we post in those locations. And then we have to, you know, we post our goal. So that way they know that there's viable opportunities there. You know, Waco hasn't quite seen the boom. I mean, we're growing and we're seeing construction. And so we do have to compete for resources in that regard. But again, to hit some of our federal marks, you know, we have to have that DB goal set. And so we like to overachieve on some of those. And so that's one of the ways that we've done some of our outreach, you know, for the DBE community. And as far as like our industry day, you know, Waco's kind of, or I say Waco, but Waco Regional, the airport's kind of, we're off. We're kind of, you know, we're not in the middle. People don't come and, you know, we're an O&D airport, like true and true, you know, so, you know, some people don't even know that we have airline service there. And so those types of outreach communities are totally different. So we go to field trips, we have career days, and we show up, you know, we bring, you know, as a matter of fact, this month, my staff is hating me because we have 1,200 students that are ranging from second grade to high school that are coming through, you know, through our airport. You know, we have internship opportunities. And so, like I said, the outreach is different than business, you know, because one of the things that I like to brag on, and I may be corrected here, but, you know, I'm probably one of the only airport directors in the country that teaches future pilots, you know, and I have internships, you know, so when we go talk to the airlines and we say, hey, you know, where there's an airline shortage, well, we went and attracted a flight training program that's partnered with Baylor Aviation. They have 110 students that, Granted, I know we're short 19,000, but hey, we're trying to do our part, but we're trying to be forward in some of that stuff, and we're, granting them opportunities to grow and those types of things. So when we look at community outreach, yes, and again, we don't have resources and offices. When we say staff, it's me and, 2 other guys are out there running around. But, those are some of the kind of innovative ways we try and get in the community. 1, in the business community. 2, just our stakeholders of our community and the viability. One of the other programs that we have is Tango Flight, which is kind of building, it's an opportunity for high schools to build an airplane. It's like a shop or maintenance course, but it's an aviation mechanics course. And, it's a program that we've partnered with a school district adjacent to the airport. And so, again, 40 or 50 kids are going to, in 2 years, are going to have some of their basic hours for A&T mechanic, those types of things. And so, again, it's kind of like career days or, career opportunities in that way. It's different, and I know that, every airport tries to hit their community in different ways and impact them in different ways. But that's kind of our focal for us is kind of, this workforce development when it comes to, it really is a grassroots campaign at Waco for sure.
I see a lot of the ideas that you're all talking about. There's a lot of you're thinking outside the box. You bring a lot of different thoughts and ideas. So from my last question, as we're about to finish this, Kevin, you said it like this. This is what keeps me up at night. So I'll ask each and every one of you probably for about a minute or so, what keeps you up at night, and how can industry in general help you address some of those issues as you're trying to put your projects and programs together and execution programs together?
Yeah, I think he hit it on the head. The pilot shortage is also something that keeps me up at night. We have a lot of regional jets in Corpus Christi, and so the regional jets are starting to get phased out more and more. And so, our future is dependent on regional jets. So unless we start getting mainline American and United flights in there, we don't know what the future holds for those 2 carriers. The electrification's huge. Also, the unmanned aircraft systems. We talked about drones a little bit ago with Dallas, but we're Lone Star, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They have the Lone Star program. There's only one. We're one of 7 cities that has this program funded by the FAA, and we just signed a lease with them, and they're going to start flying unmanned aircraft, routing them through FAA-controlled space. And we're really looking forward to that. But again, it's one of those things that keeps me up at night.
Well,
I think, the regional service is kind of what's big there for us because, Waco's in a very unique situation. We have a general aviation airport in McGregor. We have a commercial airport with Waco Regional. And then we have, TSTC, which houses L3 and heavy cargo. So, we really are kind of in a niche over there. And so for me, is how do we attract and maintain business to have a healthy aviation industry as a whole for our county? And we're not even under one entity. The city of McGregor owns or, manage the McGregor Airport. The state of Texas, our TSTC college, manages theirs. And so we try and have some collaboration, but that's a challenge for us. But what keeps me up at night is, really is air service, because again, that's kind of where my bread is buttered. But that really is a challenge for us, and we're trying to solve that.
Nicole?
So I think this question, somebody in my staff must have told you I send out 2 a.m. emails every single day. There's a lot that keeps me up at night because with a failed infrastructure system, we don't have an airport, right? We're sited. We have to make sure that we're in compliance. And so there's a lot of moving parts. We have over 100 projects that we're trying to manage at various stages, whether it's planning, initiation, design, actual construction, and even closing them out. And there's constant meetings to various types of stakeholders, all the carriers, the senior staff, working with our project managers, our controls teams, to make sure that the data that we're tracking and tracking and representing is accurate. And so, because if there's some wrong data, it could it could be a mismanagement of something. It can cause a huge lapse in productivity. So for me is to try and make sure that all of the information that we have to supply with regards to all of our projects is accurate. And the thing that's been helping the most lately is the different control systems that we've put in place to track the data and report that information back to our various stakeholders.
Thank you, Summer.
It's speed to market for me, and there's a lot of things that are challenges. I don't want to call them roadblocks. Challenges ahead of us. One, of course, when you go this fast, it is controls. You can lose a lot. You may not have line of sight to everything. I think more importantly, it's like talk about industry capacity and resource availability with trades. Just in general, trades, workforce, and also in the engineering architectural side. Those graduation rates, the enrollments in those schools are down. We're all fighting for it here in this region, even with the city, Project Connect, Cap Stitch, all of those things. I'm fighting with my colleagues for them, and there's not enough people to do the work. Whether I'm in Austin or anywhere else in the U.S., this is a big industry issue for design and construction. And I don't know how we're all going to get the work. And that's why I'm trying to be the best owner so I can get all the talented resources and people out there. And they'll want to work here in Austin for us. I'll try to be charming and nice and pay my bills on time. All
You
the
made him
things.
sweat. So.
Yeah. All those things like that. But it's a big challenge for us.
Emily, we have 1 more minute, so just in closing.
Okay. In closing, I would say, like, as Nicole and Summer mentioned, that there's challenges or hurdles, whatever you want to call them. For us, a lot of it comes to funding and the lack of with the amount of airports. There's nearly 300 airports in Texas, and 182 of them receive federal funding. So a lot of them are very small towns, and they don't have the ability to even sometimes have their local match. And that bothers me personally because I want to see these airports develop, because sometimes those small towns, like, that's how they get their resources, especially in a time of like drought or when there's a hurricane on the opposite side of the state. And the climate in the state is so vast that like there's different issues depending on what part of the state you're in. So that's something that I want to continue trying to, I don't know, conversations like this, like I think that collaboration really helps and brings the issues to the forefront so we can start to work on them.
Okay, thank you all. We're hitting the mark just in time. So no delays on these flights that we had with these airports. So at this point, obviously there's no Q&A, but they'll be out on the foyer available for you to ask any other questions. And thank you for the time. Thank you for joining us today. And